So when I started out, so there's lots of ways to sell to the hotel industry, and I know every single one of them now. But when I was starting out, I didn't. But this would carry over to any type of business that is going to sell into any type of franchise industry.
Right.
So if you're going to sell to Subway shops, if you're going to sell to McDonald's, if you're going to sell to Starbucks, if you're going to sell to hotels, if you're going to sell any type of industry like that is a franchisor and a franchisee relationship, they all have different ways of doing business with them. The way that I did it was I just called directly on the phone to a general manager and told them what I was doing and can I come out and give them a demonstration. It was that simple. It was old school sales. Hey, GM, my name's Shawn Thomas. I have this company called Uniguest. I want to talk to you about putting a public computer in your lobby. You know, the best way for me to show you how it works is just to come down and show you. Why don't you give me just a little bit? So I would bring a computer with me and set it up. I mean, it was crazy. But I would bring the whole thing.
What you had to do.
Had to do what I had to do, right? So back then we didn't have all these technologies where I could log into their computer and give it, like we did in the old, as we got bigger. But in the old days, I would come down there and say, I'm going to bring a computer with me. I'm going to show you how it works. So I would get there to the appointment, and the GM would say, okay, what do you need? And I said, I just need somewhere to set up this computer. I need an internet connection. I need a hardwire. Back then it was hardwire internet connection. They didn't even have Wi-Fi. This is that long ago. So I would set it up. 5. Okay. So I would set it up. And then basically give him the demonstration of the software. And then either he could make a decision, or sometimes in the hotel industry, they have a management company that manages the property, like an apartment or anything like that in real estate. And they made the decision, and it would get sent up. Or sometimes it's an ownership group that owns the property, and the GM just doesn't have decision-making capabilities. So when I trained my salespeople, I told them, okay, we start with a GM, then we find the management company, and or the ownership group. And then as we got bigger and we got installed in a couple hundred hotels, then what I started to do is I hired salespeople, and I wanted to start scaling the business. I started hiring salespeople to call the individual hotels and management companies, and then I started going from top down. I would start calling the hotel chain and building relationships and trying to get my product built into the standards. The ultimate mecca type of contract you can get with hotels is when the hotelier says, we want they're all about consistency. So as you're selling to a franchise organization, remember, it's all about consistency. If you're going to put it in there, you're just testing it out. But your goal is to convince the franchisor to build it into the franchise standards that product is going to be across the board
and
every single
getting
one.
a better deal as a result.
And then once you get to that level, then the franchisor says, okay, you've been working with the hotels, but now we're going to put our negotiating skills with their vendor relation groups. And then that's when they pound you. But by then, you make so much more money because of volume. So I did a bottom-up approach at first. And then as we got bigger and got some penetration, we did a top-down. And then we just kind of met in the middle.
Very, very cool. So you went from the bottom at first to the top, and then from the top to the bottom. You get into all of these locations, and then it's easier, of course, to leverage one location to sell to another, to say, hey, your competitors are doing this. These other guys in big hotels are doing this. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this.
So here's a perfect example. So when I was first starting off, I got to about 100 hotels installed with our product. And I was living in Memphis, Tennessee. That's where my company was. And Hilton was based in Memphis, Tennessee, their IT part, and then some of their brands. And so I got a phone call one day that said, hey, your product is in our embassy suites. We want to talk to you about doing this in all of our embassy suites. And I was like, absolutely, I can do it. It's just me, but sure, I can do it. The whole fake it till you make it type of thing. So I go in, make the presentation. They love it, la, la, la. Then they start to realize, holy crap, we're about to take this guy's company from a one-man operation and add 400, 500 hotels. How's he going to do it? So they sat me down. They said, hey, Shawn, we called all of our customers, because I was installed in maybe 5 embassy suites at a time and a couple of other Hilton properties. And they said, we called the hotels, and they said they love the product. The guests love it. And every time they call, they always get the best customer service. You guys you always answer the phone. You always take care of things. And then we would ask them, they say, well, who do you deal with there at Uniguest? And they would say, oh, we deal with Shawn.
But that's a problem, though, right?
Yeah, so they're like, so then we start asking, well, what times of the day? Like always? They're like, yeah, whenever we call, it's always Shawn that answers the phone.
It's that one guy behind the phone and selling the product, right?
So they're like, then they start laughing. They're like, well, wait a second. Yeah, actually, when we do call them at 2 o'clock in the morning, Shawn's always answering the phone. Because I had 2 BlackBerries, So every time they go, well, Shawn, we realize that you do give great customer service, but now we're about to add 400 more hotels to your customer list. you need to actually form a company now. And I talk about this with all my, followers on social media. At the time, even though I had a company, it was just me. I had a job.
You're the one-man army.
Yeah, I was self-employed. I had a job. So I talked to them. I said, hey, so that's finally when I reached out to a guy that I had met in the industry, and I said, hey, I'm bigger now. Why don't you come in and buy into the company? This guy was in the hotel industry for like 20 years, selling to the hotel industry, understood it. So I convinced him to come in and invest in the company and be a partner. And we convinced Embassy Suites to do it. So the point that I was about to make is this. So once Embassy Suites said, okay, we're going to make this a franchise standard. It was the first contract of its type in the hotel industry. So it was really cool to actually be the first company that signs a hotel contract with one brand mandated. Every hotel has to do it. That's when I learned a lot about the hotel industry, because what happened is this. As Hilton sent emails out to all of their hotels and said, you have to do this by X date, because they got to give you time to do it.
To actually comply. Yeah.
Those hotels were already doing business with some of my competitors that had popped up. And then what I realized was XYZ management company or ownership group that owned that Embassy Suites also owned 20 other hotels.
Right, different hotels.
All other brands. Right. And they owned all these other ones. So then they said, well, if I'm going to have to do this for my Embassy Suites, why don't we just go ahead and structure a deal for you to do all my hotels, because I like this product. It needs to be in all my hotels. Boom. You talk about being able to scale. That's why we reached, even though our average ticket for an individual hotel was anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000.
Oh, what, a year or
no, just a one-time fee,
over lifetime
and then annual. No, we charged the annual fee too. That was the upfront cost, and then the annual would be like anywhere from one computer was $600, another, adding another one was $1,200, whatever. Even though our average ticket was that small, we were still able to reach Inc. 500 status 2 years in a row with the substantial growth that we had, because we went from 1.2 million to 2.3, 2.3. to 3.2 to 4.8 to 7. It just grew so fast. And when you think about how many customers you have to add on to at that low of a dollar amount per ticket, we had to scale our operations and customer service so fast it wasn't even funny.
But more so, I think operationally and service based rather than sales based, right? Because at this point, sales were almost like coming to you.
It was, but even though you're mandated, you still want to get that business as fast as possible. So I think we had to hire more customer service reps for sure
to support,
but we had to increase our sales staff because now we had this huge pipeline of.
But weren't sales then going from active sales where you're cold calling, reaching out to more of a reactive, here's a warm list of calls that these guys are pretty much going to, the minute we tell them about it and structure
it definitely made the call a lot warmer, for sure. But just like anything when you start selling to franchisees, sometimes you're going to get those ones that they don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be told what vendor they have to use. So our salespeople had to say, hey, listen, we are mandated, but we want to develop a relationship with you. We want you to want to do business with us.
We don't want you to feel forced to put it in your lobby.
And of course, from a business owner perspective, I wanted that revenue sooner than later. Right. So even though a hotel had until 12 months from now to do it, I wanted that revenue right now. Right. So we had salespeople calling the hotels to try to get them to come on board quicker.